Got a light.
So what if I told you that you could retire in your 30s?
All you need is 25 times your annual spending.
You have to be frugal. You have to save every single penny that you have.
People who are trying to do this, they're probably going to be, eating canned beans.
Did we need $1 million? $5 million?
You'll need $875,000 in the bank.
It took us about 9 years.
Today, we are here to tell you that we are financially independent.
You're not going to see them driving brand new cars. You're not going to see them going on vacations.
If everyone strives towards a goal where they quit working at the age of 30, surely this would bring our world to a grinding halt, right?
For most people, unfortunately, it's just not possible.
If you're going to play with fire, be careful not to get burned.
Got a light.
The year was 1992. It had been 5 years since Gordon Gekko had told American audiences
That greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
But the sheen of the 80s and all of its excessiveness was wearing thin. As sex pest Bill Clinton took office from George H.W. Bush, 10 million unemployed Americans looked on. With poverty and welfare growing, the bony fingers of recession were tapping at the door. Family incomes were losing ground to inflation, and jobs were being created at the slowest rate since the Great Depression. All the while, the division between the haves and have-nots was widening. This was the landscape to which a little book titled Your Money or Your Life was first published. Written by Vicki Robin, it proposed that by living with extreme frugality for a few years,
there's no need for me to use the washing machine because it just costs too much money. I could just reuse the water right here.
young people could escape their economic shackles and retire well before old age. Robin herself claimed to have achieved financial independence in just her 20s.
This mass suicide is here to the Mayan calendar, which predicts the end of time to occur on the 21st of December.
The year was 2012. While Mayan predictions about the end of the world hadn't come true, for some it may as well have. It had been 2 years since Gordon Gekko had returned to the big screen to tell American audiences,
I once said greed is good. Now it seems it's legal.
But Gordon, like many of his ilk, had lost his sheen. Faith in the US financial system had eroded.
Shut down Wall Street! Shut down Wall Street!
So as Barack Obama took office for the second time, more than 12 million unemployed Americans looked on. The US was still reeling from the devastation of the global financial crisis, the single worst recession since the Great Depression. It had left 15 million unemployed and 600,000 homeless, while those responsible had been bailed out. The division between the haves and have-nots had deepened to an endless chasm. This was the landscape to which a little blog titled Mr. Money Mustache was first published. Written by Pete Adney, it expanded upon ideas laid out by Robin to propose that by living frugally and investing the difference, young people could escape their economic shackles and retire well before old age.
In an effort to save money, I started peeing in a jar.
Adney himself claimed it would take most people just 10 years. Hey, hi, hello there. Do you like it? I grew it like the man, the Mr. Money Man. Do you know he invented fire? Like the little emote. I'm always spamming that in the chat. The Zoomers love it. Sorry, what's that? I'm wrong. About everything? Do you have any idea how long I've been researching this? Okay, well, that took me a little while, but I'm back. Turns out when you have your shit together, FIRE isn't an emote that you just spam into your favorite streamer's chat. It actually stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early, apparently. The movement is predicated on the fact that no matter who you are, you're going to want to slow down and maybe even retire one day, at least in the Western world. And to do that comfortably, you're going to have a degree of financial independence. Now for most, this is achieved after a lifetime of work and typically takes place in a person's 60s. Instead, what the FIRE movement proposes is becoming self-sufficient so that this date can be brought back to our 50s, 40s, or 30s. And you don't even have to commit fraud or scam people. This is achieved by adherently sticking to 3 fundamental concepts: investing, frugality, and the 4% rule. Because to retire early, you're gonna need a big old chunk of change. 25 times your annual living expenses, or about $1 million, should do the trick. How else did you think this worked? The fastest way to build up that nest egg of yours is to invest your hard-earned dollars regularly. Investment returns have the power to compound, and over a 10, 20, or 30-year period, grow exponentially. But I hope you don't expect this to be exciting. You're not going to be seeing a 2,000% return in 3 days by dumping all your money into Foreskin coin or buying a JPEG of a chimpanzee's taint. Because despite this being for young people, this is a total boomer strategy. While your friends are swing trading GameStop and Tesla, or hodling onto Dogecoin for dear life, you'll be investing in index funds and telling yourself that a 5% return, totally sensible. And before you click out of this video, I'll keep this brief. Index funds work like this. Instead of press one button and buy one stock, press one button and buy many stock. At its simplest, you're buying the market. So that's concept one. You're going to need to invest. And I hope you're ready to grustle, son, because you're going to need to invest a lot. Which brings us to the second concept, frugality. To invest more, you're going to need to save more, which means you'll either need to spend less, earn more, or a combination of both. You better be ready to put your whole zuzusi into this, because you're going to need to hold every penny accountable. If you practice these first two concepts for long enough, eventually you'll build a portfolio that is so big that you can draw down on it for the rest of your life. How? Well, that brings us to our final concept, the 4% rule. The 4% rule comes from a research paper known as the Trinity Study, as well as the work of financial advisor William Billiam Big Dick Bengen. And let me tell ya, that big dick do be banging.
Fuck. It just makes my mouth water. What a wonderful time.
It works like this. If someone only withdrew 4% from their investment portfolio annually, it was unlikely that they were going to exhaust their capital over a 30-year period. Did you catch that? Yeah, didn't think so. Look, I've got to be real with you. We've come to a section of the video that admittedly is kind of boring, but it is also important for you to know before we move on. So, I'll make a deal with you. Give me 1 minute to get through it, and then we'll get straight back into the piss and fights. Deal? Okay. Let's go. Let's say you have $1 million invested in the stock market and your cost of living is $40,000 a year. To make sure you can eat, keep a roof over your head, pay your bills, and keep up with that Coke addiction, you're going to sell 4% of your portfolio. Now you're probably thinking, well, hang on, if you're doing that every year, that's not going to last very long, but I've still got 30 seconds left, okay? Historically, the US stock market has returned around 7% per year on average. And so based on this average, even if you withdrew $40,000, you'd still be $30,000 better off. Do you get it now? The idea is the money can never run out. I bet you're thinking to yourself, whew, that sounds pretty good, but not quite, pal. Hold on to your tuchus, because it's time we get down and dirty into the muck. You see, it's a common notion within the FIRE community that by following the 4% rule, your funds can last, well, forever. But there's absolutely no evidence of this. The modeling done by the Trinity Study and our good old boy Billiam, he's not dead, but you know, just wherever he is, just want to blow him a little kiss. Anyway, back on track. The modeling in their research was built on the assumption that a person would only need the fund to last them 30 years. Basically, they made it for someone retiring in their 60s, you know, and dying soon. There's no substantial proof showing that the 4% rule would work for someone who planned to retire early. The other issue with the 4% rule is that it just lacks flexibility. Get mum. What do you do if the market's up? What do you do if the market's down? How do you know that you're not being crushed by inflation? Help! Really, 4% shouldn't be used as some sort of hard and fast rule. It's not something that you just set up and forget about. Instead, treat it more like a baby. You know, for the most part, it should be fine to just kind of go off and do its own thing. But at least once a year, maybe just go in, check in on it, see that it's doing okay. Perhaps one of the bigger issues with FIRE is that it just isn't achievable for everyone. And to attain it is to have a high degree of privilege. Race, gender, sexuality, education, culture, these are all determinant factors as to whether someone can achieve FIRE. I got that trust fund money, yeah. This ties in with another issue, that the figureheads of the community aren't exactly practicing what they preach. They're not drawing down on their portfolio. Instead, they're using the money that they make by talking about how they retired early to fund their early retirement. By selling tickets to events or courses, or ad space on their blogs or podcasts, talking about money makes money. And yes, I'm aware of the irony, I know I'm a hypocrite, but hey, I have 50 subs, okay? At this point, it would be more lucrative to shit in my hands and clap. These people might watch that. Hey, subscribe. But without a doubt, the biggest complaint that FIRE gets is in relation to the last part of the acronym. Because the assumption is, if you're retiring early, you're quitting your job to stay at home and goon for 8 hours a day. I think the reason a lot of these assumptions exist is because the acronym sucks. It's just flat out wrong. Very few people who achieve FIRE actually retire.
Wait, what? Bro, are you serious? We're 10 minutes into this video and you're only now saying this? Nah, I'm leaving a comment for this, dude. Eat shit, you mayonnaise guzzling, piss obsessed, pew beard, clickbait bitch.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of baited you with that title. Well, kind of. People do quit their jobs. They'll yeet out of there the first chance they get. But just because they're no longer working their day job, it doesn't mean they're no longer working entirely. Most within the FIRE community that make it to early retirement go on to do the things that they've always wanted to do. These people do continue to contribute to society in some capacity. And because the work that they're doing is something that they genuinely want to do, and not just because they need a paycheck, they tend to do it pretty well. Look at that. Much like my inability to have a normal conversation without mentioning the word piss, that negative has become a positive.
Quite pungent.
That was a segue. We're going to talk about the good stuff now. But don't worry, I'm not going to spew up some Watch Mojo top 10 benefits of FIRE list for you. Instead, I'm going to talk about how FIRE can affect your psychology for the better. Because early retirement can help you take on more meaningful and satisfying work. This is a bad example. Given the current global sentiment to work at the moment, I think this point is particularly important. With millions of people quitting their jobs because they feel overworked and like they deserve better, it's become crucial to find and do meaningful work.
This is still a bad example.
Because we've all heard the phrase that time is money, but really it's more like money is time. Work, as we currently know it, proposes that we exchange our time for money. And while the subreddit r/anti-work hopes to change that one day.
So I think laziness is a virtue.
Maybe not anymore. The sad reality is that for the time being, when Jeff demands that his head be polished for the 5th time in a day, it's hard to say no when you remember that without this job, you can't afford this month's rent. And so because of this, work, again as we know it, detracts people from being able to step out of their comfort zone and try something new.
Stop cutting to me.
But when we don't have to worry about how we're going to pay our rent or mortgage, buy groceries, or any of the other wonderful expenses that being an adult entails, we're free to pursue our dreams.
I'm sorry, I don't really. Has that been on the whole time?
What FIRE proposes instead of letting an employer purchase our time, we just purchase it ourselves. And so we begin to look at money as a representation of the days, weeks, months, and years that make up our lives. And because we have this view of money, we begin to live more humbly and sustainably. The so-called prosperous life begins to lose its sheen. But despite having less, you'll feel like you have so much more. Because for once, you'll have complete control over perhaps the greatest asset of your life, your time. And can you really say how much that's worth? Yes, title of the video, $1 million. What? Keep up. Just remember, this isn't for everyone. And I don't say that in a grussel grind set sort of way. I mean, quite literally, this isn't for everyone. It is an impossible task for some. And anyone who tries to tell you differently is probably getting paid to do so. It's also by no means a promise. The stock market is volatile, and it's quite likely that you'll get outperformed by some dude bro and his shitcoins or Jimmy Fallon's NFTs in back-to-back years. The year is 2022. It's been almost 10 years since Jordan Belfort told American audiences,
"I want you to deal with your problems by becoming rich."
A decade-long bull run and the rise of cryptocurrency have ensured those that took this capitalist proverb to heart have ruled as king of the hill. But as Joe Biden serves his first term, almost 6 million unemployed Americans look on. The US and world is still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic and the devastation it has caused to the health of ourselves and our economy. With a recession likely on the horizon, tens of millions will be left unemployed and hundreds of thousands homeless. Meanwhile, the world's richest have continued to grow richer. The division between the haves and have-nots has deepened to an impossible black hole. This is the landscape to which a small YouTube channel has published this video. Produced by some Pew Beard, it attempts to lay bare the ideas of Robin and Adnai to propose that while incredibly difficult to achieve, FIRE does offer those that can pursue it a chance to escape the system once and for all. And all for the low, low price of just $1 million.